Hi ladies, I don't know if you remember or not, but in my last video I talked about the fact that I wanted to share with you about being like Jesus. It's important to me. It has changed my life. It's transformed me. And then I've carried that into, I've been teaching the bridge class for the last few weeks, and we've been looking at what would Jesus do? And how would Jesus behave? So we are learning to be like Jesus. And so I wanted to carry those thoughts into our videos for us to look at and talk about then how can we look at those aspects or characteristics of Jesus and teach those to our children. So the first one I wanted to share with you is, and by the way, I look very studious because I'm at the church building doing this. I wanted to get it done before I wandered around all afternoon. So as I was looking at this, first one I want to talk about is Jesus would love others. That's what Jesus would do. And I want to take you, first of all, when we look at Jesus and when he says, what are the greatest commands? I want to look at Luke 10, verses 25 through 28. Luke 10, 25 through 28. And he's going to give the parable of the Good Samaritan here, but it's before that takes place. He says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, well, what is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this, and you will live. And then he goes into asking about, well, who is my neighbor? What does my neighbor look like? So basically, we see here, and he repeats this in other Gospels and in other places, it says the greatest commands are to love God and love others. Those are the two greatest commands. Then I want to take you over to John. This is our biblical foundation for what the rest of the stuff we're going to talk about. I want to take you over to John 13, verses 34 and 35 says, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By that love, everyone will know that you are my disciples, and a disciple is a follower of Jesus, if you love one another. So we can look at that and see how important that love is. In fact, I want to show you if we're going to be followers of Jesus, and those are the words of Jesus. This is Jesus talking. And so if we're going to follow Jesus and be like him, we're going to love others. And as you skip through the rest of the chapter 14 and chapter 15, and I've marked it in my Bible here. In chapter 14 and verse 15, he says, if you love me, keep my commands. And verse 21, whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me. The one who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love them and show myself to them. Verse 23, anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them. Anyone who does not love me will not obey my teaching. And then in chapter 15, in verse 12, he says, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And then in verse 17, he says, this is my command, that you love each other. So when we talk about the commands of Jesus and what is the greatest command Jesus is talking about, we understand that it is to love God and love others. So how do we do that? What does that look like? And how can we teach this to our children? I have a list I'm going to share with you. I put this list together. I did some searching and gathered from my own heart, what would I teach? And actually Pam Robinson just finished in ladies class this morning, and so many of the points she gave in ladies class I had in my lessons. So it is a repetitive thing that you've probably heard before, but we're going to talk about it for the next few minutes on if I am going to teach my children to love others, what does that look like? How do I do that? And it starts in our home. That's where it starts with. It starts by teaching by example. If you want your children to genuinely love others, to genuinely love them, you're going to have to love others. They're going to have to see that in you, in your behavior, in how you talk about people. So understanding that this loving others starts by you loving others. Your children know you love them. And they may know, if you're married, they know that you love their father. But do they know that you love people outside of your family circle? How do they know that? So one of the ways we do is by example, but another way we do is by listening to your children, by really listening to them, learning, teaching them to listen respectfully to you when you talk. It's one of the things that I stress when I'm teaching a Bible class, that when I am talking, you aren't talking. That's showing respect because you're going to be listening to me. Well, we want to teach our children to be good listeners. And sometimes that's hard for us. Some of us aren't very good listeners, but we're wanting to teach our children to be good listeners. So here's a suggestion. I would sit your family around in a circle one evening and have each person share their day. Just how did their day go? What did that look like? You know, have them share whatever they want to about their day. So go in a circle and do that. Each of you share. And then go back around and have each person share one or two things that they heard each person say in the family, and that teaches them to stop and listen to what is being said. And as you teach your children to listen to others, to be a respectful listener, they also learn about other people. It shows other people respect, and it teaches them to be thoughtful and respectful of others. My husband is extremely thoughtful. He listens and he hears what people say, things that they like and things that they don't like. And he remembers that and does for others that way. So learning to listen and learning to listen to your children, teaching them to listen. And then we need to make sure we're teaching our children to be patient with each other. This is showing love. Teaching them to be patient with each other. And it starts in the home, of being patient with siblings and being patient with each family member. How do we treat them? Do we treat them with patience? And if we do that, if we start in the home teaching them how to be patient with each other, it will help them to be patient as they leave the home, as they interact with people outside of the home. I know I keep looking at my notes, but I've got a whole list. I don't want to mess up and leave something out. And then another thing, as we're teaching our children to love others, and I'm going to repeat that over and over again, as we're teaching our children to love others, we're going to teach them selflessness, that this world does not revolve around you. And sometimes as parents, we kind of make it revolve around our kids. And that's not healthy for them. I understand they're dependent upon you, and we want to show them love, and we want to show them care. But making them think everything is about them, that they should always get their way, is not healthy. And it won't teach them how to show love to others. They won't be showing, in fact, it will affect how they show love to you, because they will expect to be entitled. They expect to be given everything they want, and that's not real life. That's not Christian living either. So we want to make sure that they're learning selflessness. They start learning that by learning to share, and understanding that material possessions are less important than people. We don't want to ever put material possessions before people. The putting others first, making sure they're learning to put others first. It doesn't matter if you had it first. It's making sure that they're putting others first and thinking of others before themselves. Our world does not teach this, and we struggle kind of teaching this in the church, because it's really easy for us to get caught up in, well, it's my right, and I should be able to, and it is all about me, and that's not Christian living. And we can teach them this by helping them understand putting others first is a way to put ourselves aside and show others that we love them. And then also around the house, helping each other with chores or jobs around the house, whatever you call them around your house. Having them be focused on meeting those needs of others too, being a person that jumps in and helps others. And the next point is never tolerate unkind behavior towards others. If we're going to teach our children to love, we can't allow them to be unkind to each other. We can't do that. I get siblings, and siblings have their moments, but it's a teaching moment in that moment. Stepping back and going, why did you feel that way? And understanding that we can't tolerate any kind of unkind behavior. I had it first. And I see this with parents going, well, she had it first. You know, I'm sorry, so-and-so, but my child had it first, and that's just the way things go. That's not being okay. Or leaving someone out. Watching that, and if your children are leaving others out, that's unkind behavior. You see that with siblings sometimes, leaving maybe the younger sibling out when they have friends over. And I understand that. I understand there will be those moments, but making sure you're talking about that at home and what that looks like and how to handle that in a way that doesn't hurt other people's feelings. And the way I look at this is any kindness, any kind behavior I want bestowed on my children, I want to teach my children to give to others. The stories that I hear from kids about I eat alone at lunch because of the way children talk about the other kids talk about me. I want to make sure my children never behave that way towards another child. Or if someone visits at church, I want to make sure my child is so focused on being kind, they're the one going up and talking to them. So never tolerate unkind behavior towards others. And then we teach love to our children, love for others, by giving others the benefit of the doubt. And again, this is taught by example. Do you talk like everyone is out to get you? Does everything hurt your feelings? When somebody cuts you off in traffic, are they doing it intentionally? They're being ugly to you? Is that how you see things? And so make sure you talk about different scenarios or situations and how we can assume the opposite, more positive thought in those situations. You don't want your children growing up being overly sensitive. That's self-focused. We want to make sure that they are outward focused and always assuming the best in people. It will make them a happier person as well. And then the next thing, teaching your children to love others, you're going to skip gossip. If you're talking badly about people at home, your children are going to feel like it's okay to talk badly about other people. Gossip is so awful, and it's a learned thing. We need to be careful about that. So if gossip starts taking place, if your child is coming home and sharing about the weird kid, you're not going to be hateful, say, well, we don't talk ugly about others, but we're going to say, okay, let's look at that situation with the weird kid at school, the new kid at school. Why do you think they're weird? Why do you think they're struggling? Why do you think they acted that way? And look at it from a positive viewpoint of maybe that it's because they're new that they're weird. Maybe they dressed like that at their other school. Everybody dressed like that, but they don't hear how uncomfortable that must have made that person feel. But make sure you're never encouraging gossip. Make sure you're always putting a positive spin on things and never tearing people up with your words. That is teaching your children to love others. And then teaching your children to manage their emotions, not suppress them, how to deal with them. Yeah, sometimes the other people do hurt my feelings, and sometimes the other people do make me angry. I do get angry. Some people make me feel unimportant. So instead of going, we're not going to ever feel that way, well, that's unrealistic. It's how do I deal with that? How am I going to react in that situation? Talk about this at home. Make sure your children have practiced some of these things and they've had these seeds planted in their head in how they're going to respond that way to others, because that way when that situation does come up, or a situation like that does come up, they're better prepared. Doesn't mean they're always going to handle it perfectly, and be careful of how you handle it when they don't handle it perfectly. Always just step back and go, okay, I understand you felt that way. What could you have done different? What could you have done that would have made you feel better and maybe made the other person feel better? So teach them to manage those emotions. That helps them show love in a genuine way to other people. And it's even okay in teaching that to teach them to tell the other person, I'm sorry, that made me angry. I shouldn't have responded so ugly to you, but I was angry. Letting them, it's okay to express those things, but making sure they're communicating those. And I know you're thinking, well, that's creating weird little kids. Yeah, well, we're different because we love Jesus, and that's who we want to be. We teach our children to love others by treating them to respect everyone equally. Everyone is treated with equal respect. A doctor is not given more respect than a waitress. The teacher does not deserve more respect than the students from a child's perspective. Now, we want to teach our children, obviously, to respect authority, but if we teach them to respect everyone, they're going to respect authority. And it is a thinking that is anti-world, because we've developed, even in the church, a thinking of, well, they have to earn my respect. You know, I have to be able to respect them. That's not biblical. That's not biblical. Our goal is to lift others up, no matter how we're being treated, or no matter how they're being towards us. We want to lift them up and respect them because we're trying to be like Jesus, and that shows how to love others. And then making sure that we're showing our children love even when they behave poorly. We want to make sure that if we do respond out of anger sometime in a situation, that we explain to them, okay, I'm sorry, Mom shouldn't have blown up at you that way. I'm sorry I did that. I do love you. My anger gets away from me sometimes too. My emotions get away from me sometimes too. What could I have done different? And make sure you talk it through with them. And then making sure we're letting them know if their behavior has been bad, making sure we know that we forgive them. Forgiveness is a huge part of loving others, and that's going to be one of our other videos at some point, so I'm not going to hit very hard on that. But this respect and loving others and not holding these things against them, it's the 1 Corinthians 13. Go read through that, how love behaves. But it's all about that showing love even when they behave poorly. And then talk about what loving others looks like. Let them share with you ways that they would show love to others. Show love in their family, show love in their neighborhood, show love at school. Talk about it with them. Let them share those things with you. We did this in Bible class, and it's always interesting to see from a child's point of view. Our kids, all of your kids have one struggle or another with people in their lives. And so teaching them how to deal with it is equipping your children. And it isn't just equipping your children, it's teaching them to be like Jesus. And that's our overall goal. A practical thing I can give you is create a love others jar. Do it as a family, and sit down and have each family member, have your kids doing this, writing down things you can do to show others that you love them. And then write those on different slips of paper and put them in that jar. And once a week or once a month or whatever, pull one of those slips out and do that as a family, whatever it might be. And as you start this, it will explode. Your kids will start wanting to do this more and more. We would take Christmas ornaments around at Christmas and little goodies to our neighborhood, and my kids loved it because it was something they got to share in, and watching the joy of the neighbors, that we had older neighbors and younger neighbors, and watching them around us. My kids loved that. So pull them in and let them be a part of that. But again, our purpose is to have children that look like Jesus. Always, always, always take them back to Jesus as you're teaching them these things. If you're teaching the importance of loving others, let them know, Jesus loves us so much. Look what he has done for us. We want to make sure, since he's asked us to love others the way he did, that we are working to be those people that show a genuine love for others, that we are making sure that we're putting ourselves aside and lifting others up. Because it is by our love for one another that people are going to know that we are followers of Jesus. So think on those things. And here are your discussion questions. And we'll talk about these next Tuesday night. Number 1, what is the hardest part of loving others for you? Number 2, how could we do better showing love to each other as adults? Number 3, do you think selfness or being self-centered is hard to overcome for children? What are some ways we can help them? Number 4, share something one of your children has done that has shown love to others. And then number 5, anything you have tried at your house to teach loving others to your children. We'll have a moment to share that. So watch this when you can. I love you all. If you have any questions, store them up and we'll share them next Tuesday. If not, send me a text or an email and I'd love to talk about it with you. Love you all. Have a good week.